Welcome. This is Canine Body Language. This will be presented by myself, Kate Wilson. I have a bachelor's in science for applied animal behavior and neurobiology, and I'm a behavior consultant and a certified pet dog trainer. This presentation is designed to help anybody with a dog or who's working with dogs learn to recognize and interpret the communication that dogs are giving to each other and to us to prevent conflict. This will be three main sections. There are two other lectures, one on just play and one on just predation. This talk is going to focus on negotiation signals, cutoff signals, conflict and the escalating signals, and stress, fear, and anxiety, and talk about how those lead to conflict and aggression. So negotiation signals are signals that dogs use in order to um, navigate their daily social interactions with us. So this can be used to asking to go into another dog's space, declining invitations to play, walking past a dog with a bone peacefully. There's many ways to categorize behavior, but this is what you're being witnessing if you have multiple dogs 90% of the time in a household. So in this picture here, we have a dog who sat down with a frisbee and there's three other dogs watching them, but none of them approach because they have received the message that the dog with the frisbee is no longer opting to play with this frisbee as a group toy. So you see the other dogs are starting to kind of give that dog a little bit of a buffer zone. Now, if they ignore that communication and they move in, that could ensue conflict. So these signals are what keeps the peace in your home. And noticing those, you can actually reinforce those and make them more prevalent if you're working on something where you're hoping for more peaceful interactions between your dogs. In this talk, we're going to look at many individual body signals that the dogs are giving off. We're going to look at their eyes and their ears and their tail and their mouth, what their feet are doing, and their body posture. It's important to look at all of these things at the same time so that you can get a good picture of the internal state of that dog. I can't just see one thing. If I see a flash of teeth, that might not be a snarl. That could be a smile. If I see the dog doing a lot of signals that look like they want to come closer to be pet, but they're also acting nervous, I need to take all of that into account when I'm interpreting what does that dog want and what is happening to drive that dog to maybe seek comfort from me. So, and remember that dogs can have, just like that example, they can have more than one motivation at a time. A dog who is fearful can also become aggressive. They're not a state, it's not a stable personality trait in the dog. Let's look at some puppy licking. So this is a behavior that a lot of the canines do where they'll lick the mouth of an adult or a dog that they perceive as above them in their social order. A dog that they're trying to appease and keep the peace. So this can happen if they're in a sticky situation. So we have on our far right, we have this little pitty, and she's licking the lab on the face. This is because they're in the car. It's an uncomfortable situation. And so she just wants to re-cement her relationship with this lab to remind him sort of she's just a puppy and she's not trying to cause any problem. And this can also be done in a sort of obnoxious way where they can lick the other dogs out of their space, but it's generally a peaceful behavior that they're using it for. The root behavior of where this comes from, because a lot of behavior has sort of a root purpose, was in the wild canines, they lick and will mob an adult wolf face and they regurgitate food. So a lot of these behaviors that they're using for social sort of a um, connection or for a message, they have a root uh, evolutionary purpose that they originally served, and they've sort of been used for this purpose as well, to inhibit aggression. So you might see this when people come to your house and dogs want to greet you. You can see this when you move into a dog space. They may seek to sort of re-cement the relationship with you. You can also have dogs that start off with licking and then they turn it into sort of a muzzle grab where they also bite you on the face. So you can, and again, dogs can be more than one emotion at a time. They can start off being sort of puppyish and licking on the face, and they can end up actually being more uncomfortable as maybe they get closer and they realize they don't know that person. So if you have a dog who also has maybe some fear of strangers, and you combine that with a nervous dog who's doing puppy licking, you can get a dog who suddenly feels really overwhelmed and they're very close to somebody's face at that point. So all these pictures are different dogs seeking to do puppy licking. Now, the first two on the left is a dog doing this to our owner. Here we have another dog to guardian, and then this is a dog in the shelter with me. Another face that you may see, I spoke about that flash of teeth, doesn't always mean aggression. So there's also something sort of a little dog smile that they'll do. So you'll see this is Penny. She's very nervous. She would always do this little, maybe they call it an Aussie sneer. A lot of different breeds will maybe do this a little bit more, but you'll watch while she's kind of flashing her teeth while she's barking at me. Little shake offs, little tippy tappy dancing. Yeah, so that's a little look at what that smile can look like. If I'm not sure, I see a flash of teeth, I look at the rest of the body. You'll often find that dogs that are using the tooth display in this way will be off balance. They might have a paw lifted, they'll have squinty eyes. They look a little bit goofy while they're doing it. A dog who is showing intent for they believe they're in a conflict of some way, they'll often be stiff and they'll be rigidly facing towards you or turning tensely towards you. But these dogs, as you can see, one more time, we got a whole wiggly body. It's often accompanied by overwhelming signals that the dog doesn't mean harm. And it's in greeting, frequently in greetings. All right, we got another dog's going to show us the tooth display. There's a yawn, a tongue flick. She's going to show us a helicopter tail, which is a very happy dog. She's doing her little, there's a helicopter tail, which is very, usually a pretty sweet. And then we got another tooth display. So that's just saying good morning. Stretching. You might see this if you work in a shelter environment. Dogs will stretch towards your feet when you walk by the kennels. This is a sign of anticipation, and in the same way, it becomes an inclination that that dog is, I'll say, if you're reading that body language, the dog is game for whatever you're about to do. If I'm going to go for a walk, the dog's getting ready too. Sort of a group behavior to stretch out and all join up together in the same way that yawning can be kind of a group signal that spreads across social groups. So you'll see this for those dogs that are anticipatory. So those are all dogs kind of they want to do something, they're kind of moving. There's also this the other side of negotiation where you don't want to do something. Those are also called cutoff signals. You may hear other trainers refer to them as cutoff signals. This can be something like turning the head to say they would like to end the interaction. It can be a tongue flick. There are some others that are physiological responses that you might see, but a few of them are going to be displayed here. So here we have a dingo. Someone is leaning over the dingo. We have these ears starting to go out. We have a tongue sticking out, crouched and turning around to look up at that person. And then here, so this is the tongue flick. And that's when you might see that. That shows that the dingo's not completely comfortable with being leaned over in this sit up. Over here, we're going to have a wolf hybrid, and he's being asked to get on the scale, and he's going to do a head turn and back away. He doesn't want to. So watch one more time. Said do it. Nope, head turn. So that's him cutting off. He's all done with the interaction. He peacefully just backed out and he wanted to end the interaction. If you're going in this, if you're working as a trainer and your animal is doing head turns, that is an indicator that I'm asking for something that's too high. Maybe I set my criteria too high, or I'm asking them to do something that makes them uncomfortable in that moment. So it's good to take a step back, identify what that issue is, and come up with a plan. Here are a couple more looks at the tongue flicks. We got this is a dog looking at a treat in the hand, so that can also just be your normal tongue flick where they're excited about food, maybe a little conflicted. He can't quite get it. He'd like to have it. Here is a tongue flick because of a camera in the dog's face, camera in the dog's face, another dog very close to him. So these are all examples of what that looks like. Now, Eye contact in the dog world can be really rude. They're really careful about it. In studies, they do enjoy gazing into whoever their guardian's eyes are, but with each other, you don't see them do that, and it can usually mean that they have an intent to have that interaction. It must be accompanied by a lot of appeasement and a lot of gestures that show that they mean no harm in order to make a hard, long eye contact. So you'll see averted gaze is another way to say they would like to not have those interactions. So most of these dogs on this right side all have averted gaze. This one is just looking at the treat, so that's why we have his tongue out there. These two slides are up to remind all of us that not all dogs perceive the same situations with the same background, with the same genetics, with the same epigenetics. These are two dogs that both came from the same shelter and were transferred to a different shelter. They are there on the same day, they're around the same age. This dog on the left, it was the time of this dog's life. It was getting walks, it was getting treats, it was barking at everything that it saw. She was having a blast. She loved it there. On the other side, we have this Corso who was really nervous about it. We have these ridges on the forehead, ears are pinned back, mouth is shut. You can see the difference, the tension in this dog's face versus this dog. So it's important to remember, even though I might have these dogs in the very similar setup, I'm doing the same thing I've done with 100 other dogs. Listen to the dog in front of you. If that dog is having trouble or for some reason they are showing stress or anxiety, address it for that dog. And that's what this is a reminder of. And just to see that difference in their face really represents the internal state of that dog. And it lets me know how to proceed. Which of these two dogs am I at a higher risk of being bitten? The dog who's more stressed out. You're always going to have any kind of stress or anxiety puts you at higher risk. Ear position. So we have this is the cane up here. We have really floppy ears. This is at a sort of a neutral, relaxed, and this is alert. So this is, I'm just doing with many different ears because every version of a dog ear is going to look a little bit different with their position. This is so relaxed. You have the floppy ear down and then floppy ear alert. Here's a shepherd. So this is alert here, ears up, and this is a little bit anxious and ears are pinned back. This is relaxed and this is alert. All right, let's do a shake off. I'm gonna have a little video in a minute here. The shake off is a behavior that it's almost like um people get it when they get the shivers. Well, it's really similar for that for dogs. Sort of usually it's after a stressful event. It's more tells me that the dog is either in a transition or something stressful just happened. So our next little video is gonna be one of my dogs getting scolded. He's gonna bother the healer. That's the healer. She barked at him, scolded him, little shake off. So that's when you would sort of see that. He was just in a little bit of trouble and he got out. It's when you're looking at their tails, you'll often hear people say that it's a high wagging tail is a happy dog. Really, it's a bit of a misnomer. Every dog has a different place they carry their tail. So something like a Malamute or a Husky, their tails are curled around their back, Basenji. Though for those dogs, their tail carriage, even neutral, is very, very high versus something like a Mastiff, where their tail carriage is very, very low. In studies that were looking at the carriage of the tails and what that tells about the internal state and the sort of the confidence of that dog, they looked at the first 2 inches and they found that those first 2 inches were the ones that you should be looking at to sort of determine where that dog is in their confidence. As we go through these slides, I'll point out more, but here is a video of sort of a mastiff. So for him, he's a mastiff shepherd. His his tail carriage would be very low. Here is a red heeler. Her tail carriage normally is very high. So this was actually quite low for her, and for him this is quite high, but in this video they're virtually the same. In order to tell me how out of character or how amped are these dogs, I need to know what neutral is. So when you're working with a dog, I take a note, where's my neutral? And then how high are we up from there? Another sign when we're talking about sort of the biological uh, manifestations of stress, yawning is one. So what happens is as they become stressed, their brain starts to send a signal for their heart to be a little bit faster. They're starting to build up CO2 and the blood supply, and you get a yawn. So yawning can be an indication that that animal is under stress. You are going to see that when they're hugged, when they're in a stressful situation, maybe crowded in a vet. All those times just let me know that in this scenario, the dog is moving to a more stressed situation. Here is a video to demonstrate that with, this is Rufus, and he just saw a um, cat in the road. And now you're going to point out he has his ears. He's a floppy-eared dog. His ears are in the alert position, so they're forward. That's a dog who is alert to something in the environment. They're trying to decide what's going on. We have his face is a little bit tight. His lips are pushed forward. You can kind of see the wrinkles in his whisker bed. He turned around. He's whining a little bit. His ears pinned back a bit. He's going to yawn and go into a different state, more relaxed. So he sort of let it go there. But he starts also, those kind of dogs you also find, they yawn and then they'll start to pant right afterwards. Let's put it together. So this is the end of this section one of negotiation skills. All of these little subtle communications they're using to keep the peace. Here's Stella. She doesn't care about tennis balls. She just drops the ball in between two tennis nut balls. So Maddie, right now it belongs to Della because she touched it last. As soon as she bowed out, they both went for it. Maddie got it first. She doesn't really know what to do with it, but she enjoys the process of having the ball. Now, Della senses the tension. She's starting a little bit of appeasement. Finnegan, the mastiff all the way on the right, yawns under the stress. Head turn from the mastiff. Della's going to bow out because she senses all of this tension around the ball. So, when you put it all together, you can sort of read what those interactions look like. So the next piece, conflict and the escalating signals. Here's Maddie again showing us some of that tooth display. We got a bumpy whisker bed. This is called a hard eye, where the muscles around the eyes are very firm. Um, these are signals meant to increase the distance or keep possession of something, of an area or an object or another dog person. So this is raised hair, freezing, the hard stare, stiff body, a head turn warning, growl, bark, showing the teeth, agonistic pucker, which is what we have up here, the air snaps, inhibited bite, hard bite, a bite hold, and a bite shake. Now let's go through those. So it's important to note, aggressive dogs are not bad dogs. All animals have aggression at some point. It can be a normal range of behavior for many dogs when they're pushed to the limit. So the way they are aggressive, meaning that you can be sort of in that range of showing aggressive behavior, but maybe they don't bite more than a puncture, or they're aggressive to dogs that are maybe attacking another dog in the household, and then that's what triggers the aggression, versus they're aggressive for they guard the living room and no one can get in the living room. So they're varying degrees of how manageable that aggression is in the dog, how easy it is to live with, what it looks like in the environment, how frequently it's triggered, and how intense it's triggered. So it's always important to split that label up into objective behaviors and to know what causes those behaviors, what do those behaviors look like, what's the consequence of those behaviors. But to be careful in that label, because oftentimes, even if you're a trainer and you're working with clients will be afraid to tell you that a dog has a bite history because they perceive a bite history represents a bad dog. And now they know their dog's not a bad dog because they love their dog. And so it's a disjunction they can't reconcile. And so therefore they don't tell you of the potential risk. So it's important to just rip that label right off and put it into more objective terms of how do we manage who the dog is and what's going on with the dog. So there's a couple different ways to split aggressive behavior up. It can be sort of offensive. Offensive is taking care of conflicts in a way they're moving into those. So you might see this dog is leaning forward. The ears are forward. The tooth display is up. The tail tends to be a bit higher for these dogs. And then defensive. They're leaning away from the conflict. They would like to exit if possible, but they're ready to defend. So it's offensive and defensive. Now, those behaviors are not in different dogs. All dogs have some combination of these things. So they'll kind of flip back and forth, and it's on a spectrum. So here's a little puppy, and this puppy is afraid of strangers. Now you see when the person walks toward the puppy, The puppy's scared, dilated pupils, kind of leaning back off of their on their back legs. When they walk away, they got more confident and they became offensive and they became defensive as the person approaches. So you see this dog sort of moving in range as they assess their confidence with the stress, they change the way that they are signaling. And if no one has seen the ladder of regression, here it is. So this is a good source of an easy handout to give to shelters or rescues because they can give those to adopters and help those people recognize some of these early things we've already talked about, the blink, the nose lick, kind of this green area, head turn. And as you start to increase in stress, you start to move up to sitting, body turned away, literally walks away, creeps the ears back, maybe stands crouched, lays down, leg up, stiffens, growls, snaps, bites. Bites often have precursors, and it's maybe you hear frequently in rescue or um, in a shelter that a bite or a friend that a bite came out of nowhere. Uh, Maybe we didn't notice what happened before, and a trained eye can sort of find what some of those tells are and prevent it in the future. But oftentimes there is some type of warning that that there was going to be a bite. And more so, I am amazed at how many bites don't happen. Just in my normal interactions of walking down, I see people picking up frightened dogs and making that dog be pet by people, other strangers walking down the road. The other dog is really nervous, is really scared, it can't get away. And it's amazing that nobody's bit in those scenarios. So I think our dogs are very tolerant often. We don't know how to read it. No one teaches anybody how to read this early warning body language. So here we have some of this a little bit nervous on the bottom in the screen zone. We have a wrinkled brow, a tongue flick, averted gaze, up a little bit higher. I have a shut mouth. I'm starting to have a little bit more tension in the face and flat ears. And we'll cover this in a minute, but those are airplane ears. We get a little bit higher and we have some puppies starting to show a little bit of a wrinkle here. We have a tooth display up in this zone. So we're starting to get a little bit more intense, a little more signaling happening. Now here's a video of some, you might not think this is early warning. So we have a little healer in the shelter. I'm walking up to say hi, and she pees, and she starts to do a full display of passive submission. So she's really nervous with the person approaching her. She's trying to show she means no harm. But if I took that as, oh my gosh, you easily could mistake that for the dog who wants their belly rubbed. I lean over that dog. Now she doesn't have another option. She may escalate and go up the ladder a bit. So here's another dog. First day again at the shelter. So now we have ears forward. We're having a little bit of yawning. So shut mouth. We have something called displacement sniffing, where they do a behavior sort of out of context, as if there's something very interesting suddenly that needed to be sniffed over there. So that's a dog with very high level of stress. If I want to take stress off that dog, you move away from that dog. It's trying to communicate with you to prevent a bite. And this is another pup in the shelter. So right now we're going to show this kind of back and forth offensive defensive. So tail was up, pretty confident. When I crouched down, now the dog became unsure of the situation. And we have moaning, and it really quickly went to defensive. So we have the hackles are up. Now the tail's down, head's down. It moved away from me. So now really had a little bit of averted gaze. So it became really worried at that point. So it kind of shows that the same person and the same dog, our relationship to each other changed just within that one um, less than a minute. So the agnostic pucker, something really cool about this signal is that you see this in the coyote, in the dingo, in the wolf, and the dog. It's a behavior. It's been um, really sort of ritualized. It's distinct, and they can read it within each other. The display is a tooth display, so they'll show their canines. It's considered an honest signal. They're showing truly how big their canines are. So sort of your fighting potential. So this will also be combined with a freeze and maybe airplane ears or a hard stare or their ears forward. So you'll see this other element of a flared whiskers like we have here. Um, and there'll be another video of that later. We're moving on to air snaps. So let's see if you can hear some of these snaps. So air snaps are another distance increasing signal. You might see them in play sometimes. This is a really snappy shep. And there's a snap. A couple more snaps. So he's signaling that he doesn't want to have this interaction. And that is when we talk about the air snap is a pre-bite. Yeah, I saved him after this. All right, let's get a little puppy snap over here. This is an air snap over food. There it was. That was to that dog within, I think, a month. They were resource guarding and they had to go through that. Hackles up. Hackles are what's called that hair on the back of a dog's. So here we have some on the shoulder. Here we have some on the butt and the tail. These are considered a dishonest signal in terms of it's sort of like a cat getting poofy. When they go over their threshold and they get too excited, that's when you're in sort of a bite zone. So there's a uh, think of even a cat. Cats do this too. When they become too excited, too aroused, then you run the risk that things can spill over to actual bites. So these can be redirected aggression. You might find that in the shelter, the sweetest dog in the world can still redirect a bite if they get too excited, if they're getting barked at too much. And the same thing can happen with aggression. If you try to break up a dog fight, many people are bitten because the dog is over threshold. Now, not all hackles are bad. It's considered part sort of the palette of behaviors, but I consider it we're moving into, if I have many sort of red flag behaviors, I'm more likely to have a fight in a dog park. And hackles being high is a little part of that cocktail that tells me that we are moving into a risky zone because very excited dogs, they have less time and they have less ability to inhibit bad ideas. So here's an example. Here's my two guys. Just let them out into a big field. They start running and chasing each other. Now the cattle dog, she's barking at the little pitty Rufus, and that makes him mad. And we have all these agnostic pucker. We have ears forward from both of them. So this is kind of as that arousal, the excitement of running, and the frustration of either trying to do something or trying to tell the other dog to back off, and they're already very excited can turn into a fight. And you often see these dogs running through doorways. Here's some wagging tails like we were talking about. So this is a puppy wagging her tail, or he saw a fake dog in the yard. So there's one type. So it's kind of fast and low, but territorial. And then here we have another sweet pup, and she's doing a wobble board, and we're going to show this very relaxed tail wag. There you go. And a look at barrier frustration. So there we have another tail. We got this happy, aroused, excited. So often in the shelter, you'll have a situation where you have aroused, barking dogs jumping on the gate, barking at other dogs. And you're trying to decide, are they dog aggressive or are they very excited and frustrated they can't see those dogs? So there are some things in this dog's body language, this low wagging tail. There's no agnostic pucker. There's no sort of hardness in the dog. This is a frustrated dog. And let's move over here. 2 seconds later, you take another relaxed and happy dog, and they're perfectly happy. If they had something to do near each other, just eating treats off the ground, you didn't see any more of this barrier frustration. Now, it doesn't mean that all barrier frustration means those dogs are great together. It's you have to look at the body language to really make that assessment. And I want to see really friendly behavior if they can have interactions with in a safe way. So this dog was leashed and with a barrier in order to figure out what was going on underneath that. Here is some caching behavior. So this is going to be a little bit of a freeze and a agnostic pucker. So these dogs are bearing treats because they're nervous. You'll see this a lot in the shelter too. You give them treats. They don't want to eat those treats, and so they'll cache them for later. But he's kind of pissing off his buddy here, so you're going to see this dog kind of give him an air snap and show his teeth. That was the freeze right there. So the freeze made me put some treats out, thinking maybe he wanted treats, but he doesn't want treats. He wants his friend to stop caching. So at that point, I have to pick all the treats back up. And you're going to see again. See, he's getting mad. Yeah. Okay. And here's a freeze on testing. A little Rottweiler came in, and there was report we had some guarding over the toys, and so we give her some toys. She hadn't had any before, and this is not recommended as a test, but I saw it was a good freeze, so I got the video out for her. She did not escalate to a bite, but she had a really solid, don't take my toys away. Again, this video was taken after fully assessing what the range was on that pup and if it was okay to take those toys. This is not appropriate to test the dogs in the shelter yourself with toys to see what's going on. Okay. All right, last one. So this is going to be stress, fear, and anxiety. These are some of the things that lead to aggression. So I'll start here on the left. We have this neutral wolf in the middle, and both of these dogs and wolves share a lot of similar body language, and there's been a lot of research on wolf body language. Now, it's not all there. Dogs are missing a lot of communication that wolves have, but it's a good chart to see because they do share quite a bit. So here is our neutral wolf. Now we're going to start to move to a more confident and assertive wolf. See, the tail is going to go up, head is down, ears forward. You have a little bit of wrinkles, you have tooth display, and then we start to have a gape thread. If we start to go down in this direction, you have them less confident, a little bit more nervous. These lips are drawn back here, down, leg up, tail tucked, showing underneath their legs. So these dogs are sort of appeasing, active and passive appeasement kind of go in this range. And this is terrified. So now we have the lips are drawn back again, very similar, but you'll see a tooth display as well, another gape threat, and the escalated from there. Okay. So that's sort of the range of emotion if you look at their body language. So it's important to note that those offensive dogs, those are confident dogs. A defensive dog is less confident. So if we have over here, this is our neutral dog at the top. We're going to move to a dog who's checking something out in the environment and hasn't decided how to act yet. Tail is high, so pretty confident, alert to that situation, leaning into it. Now we have a couple things that they could do. They could decide to play. So they could be like, I would like to move towards you. So this is a signal that we were talking about, negotiation signals, the play bow. So again, there's a whole talk just on play. So the play bow says, can I come into your space? Or it can be charging. So this can be a bluff charge or charge part way and stop. You can start to have them greeting calmly where they're loose tails wagging, the head is down, the ears are back, they're kind of walking carefully and gently up. You can have a or on the other side here, we have, so if they saw it was a threat, they're going to move into it more defensively. With fear, you have these lips that are drawn back again, the foot is up and tail is tucked. Tail's tucked in all these now. So again, down on this side, on the flip side of that, these dogs are maybe starting to become a little bit worried. We have the paw up display with their head up, head down on this side, and then all the way to popping down on the ground. So that's passive appeasement, where they'd like to not have interactions anymore. So we have from the top what's going on, then this whole range of behavior. Now, it doesn't mean that dogs are going to follow these arrows perfectly. This just gives you an idea of what they can do after they've spotted something in the environment. They can go to any one of these things and they don't have to go in this order. So they could just stay and play. Some dogs see something and they're like, oh, this is going to be great. I'm going to play with it. Other dogs are like, it's a danger. I need to take care of it. So you kind of see the whole range of that depending on the dog. Leaning into pressure is a demonstration that the dog is insecure, uncomfortable. So this is our dog Maddie outside. She's leaning into the glass of the window because she heard a gunshot. She doesn't like to be outside. This is a pup who was brought into the shelter, so she has her back up against the bricks in the shelter. Here's a Shep who hurt her foot, and her guardian's gonna walk over, and Suffer put herself in the corner here. So instead of going to get her in the corner, she sat down away and she encouraged her to walk towards her. That's always a good choice to not put more pressure on the dog, but let them come to you. They sort of lean into pressure in the way that they're looking for a safe place. This was some German Shorthair pointers that came from sort of a hoarding breeding place, and they were really afraid of everything. And they weren't so afraid of humans, of just they were afraid of everything. They had to be transported in their crates. They had to have their crates or picked up in blankets. They were so afraid of everything. So this is a lot of leaning into pressure. Some other things, this dog is drooling. They're avoiding eye contact. They didn't want to stand or walk. So it wasn't always the case. They began to experience the world a little bit more over time. Tongue flared can be either a dog who has just exerted itself, so a dog who went running. So over here on our left, we have this dog with his tongue is wet, it's flared. He's happy, relaxed face. We have these almond-shaped eyes, which is happy eyes. And over here we have anxious. So we have ears are pinned. You're starting to see the whites of the eyes, and you have sort of this just dry tongue there. I know a dry tongue isn't always a sign of anxiety. Dogs can also massively drool. So it can be foamy drool, it can be drippy drool. You'll see it maybe in a dog park or in a vet clinic. So you'll just have a lot of drool, and that's another shedding and drooling are another signs of stress. Blinking as well. So here's a pup that we just pulled from the shelter and we're transporting to another shelter. And she was very nervous. She had the zoomies and then she laid on the ground and just started blinking. And just really overwhelmed with her day. Airplane ears, we already hit on these really quickly, but airplane ears are these ears that are off to the side. Here's a dog this is the chain that the dog had spent its life on, and went and pulled 11 of these dogs off of someone's property. And this guy, I grabbed a video because he wasn't showing any aggression. He was really uncomfortable, dilated pupils and airplane ears. So again, he was not going to make the first move, but that's not a dog that you want to, he's not trying to be pet. He's not trying to have interaction. Anything that I did would be sort of a breach of his communication, which was that he's uncomfortable. Paw lift for insecurity, uncertainty. That's sort of the beginning of this display that we'll look at. We saw a little bit already. Here we're going to have whale eye. If you can see, this is in horses and a lot of other species as well. If I see the whites of their eyes, that's an animal whose eye is open very wide so they can see a threat coming. So you will see the whites of their eyes as they open it really wide and are alert. You also see this little pup has there's a tongue flick, a head turn, paw lift. He sniffed the little treat I had, not the least bit interested. I show him my hand and he has a head turn. He does not want that or my hand near him. So reading that whole little situation there, he's very nervous about being in the shelter. He's nervous with me. Anything that I did to get him to interact with me would be if I touch him or move him or pick him up. Probably the best thing would be if he wanted to go for a walk, he might come with me. Or if asked him to move to a crate and then took the crate somewhere quiet. Paw over. So paw overs and hugs for dogs are pretty similarly rude. This is my dog Finn, and this is me giving him a hug. And so I love my dog deeply. I use my heart and watch his face when I hug him. He's not loving that hug. So he loved when the hug is over. One more time. He's relaxed. He's happy. Sees me coming. Shut mouth, tongue flick, and then relaxed again that it's over. So you have to think from the dog's perspective, these paw overs, these us moving into their space, those are always a little bit unnatural for them and uncomfortable. You have to really build up that trust. And when they don't feel like it, don't push it. So here's a coyote. He's going to show us a little collection of the agnostic pucker, some growling, airplane ears, the hard eye, lowered head, and then he's going to show us the C-shaped lips, a tongue flick, and that rigid body I was talking about. So there's that little gape, little threat for us. More tongue flicks, why he's chewing on his toy. They have great communication before their bite. And that's the hard stare. Can you see those eyes? Move it back. Hard eyes are sort of these dagger eyes. You can see the often dilated, and they're looking right at the target of whatever it is. So you see they're gone right now. He's relaxed. He's going back to chewing, and you'll see him moving, macking into his target there. That was the beginning of hard eyes. You just saw him freeze again, and then airplane ears. Well, he had a different thought there. Okay, we'll do one more. I'll just do the beginning again so we can catch that. There. Okay. And we have another, sorry for the quality. This is Finnegan again. He has a raw bone and he is watching a dog he doesn't like approach. We see the whites of his eyes, tongue flick. He's going to go right up the ladder. Just typical, exactly how the ladder is written. We have a yawn. The dog is still there, hasn't moved. Head turn. He's scooting right up there. Looks back. Dog is still there, wanting his bone. Agnostic pucker ears forward. Tongue flick. And he leaned into it. He took a second, nothing happened. He's going to do it again. And then his next move after this would be a bite. So I intervene. Okay. This display, this could be something that I think we're often told this is a good posture for dogs. This is a display that means that they're done with the interaction. A lot of people can be bit thinking that the mixing up between the belly rubs of who wants a belly rub and who's about to bite you. Big tail here, lips drawn back, and this leg is stiff, and this posture where the front paw is sort of tucked, curled up, and tail tucked. Those are dogs that are in a position where they don't want to have that interaction. Now, you can have dogs that are acting in a sort of a submissive way where they're being sort of silly and appeasing and they're moving into your space. And they're doing it in a way where they'd like to have an interaction, but they're still a little bit nervous. Here's an example of a pup pulled from the shelter. Again, she was transferred to another location. And she's going to show us she's submissive and nervous, but she's trying to move into us. She's groveling on the ground and crawling towards people, but she's fairly confident in it. If you can see, very puppy-like. Her eyes are actually soft. Lots of licking. We were talking about this puppy licking in the very beginning, so a lot of licking that can go to hands as well. Nervous, those lips are pulled back. You're still seeing lips pulled back, but pretty soft and confident. We haven't seen any threat behavior, and we're not seeing a ton of tension in the dog. She's still, if I walk away, she's going to chase me down and try to have an interaction. So that's a nervous dog who is still asking, they're actively seeking, and that's grovel, that pull on the ground, that neck down on the ground and groveling. They're moving into me still to have that type of an interaction. Now, this is versus passive. Passive is when it's called a tap out, when they're just done. So this picture down here on our left, this dog jumped up and tried to bite all these dogs. This dog also was terrified of the person leaning over them. Here are a couple more. This dog on the left was found us when we were riding bikes and was nervous. And a little bit that shut mouth and the eye contact right at you tells me the dog's not comfortable. Now on the other side, we have a dog who's actually upset. He's a little bit angry, so he's doing this passive. He's rolled over, his paw up, leg up. He's also making direct eye contact with his mouth shut. And that dog had many bites on his record for people petting him when he did this because it was difficult to tell the difference between that dog wanting to be pet on the stomach versus wanting to end the interaction. Now, this is going to be little puppy Cinder. She bites when you pick her up. So when she flips over her tap out, now she's getting zoomy, she's getting nervous, but she's still happy. When you put a hand over her, she taps out. And that's when she's saying she's done. You touch me, I bite you. And then if I take my hand away, she's really sweet and goofy and jumping around. And then she flips back over. And when I take my hand back off, she's sent into like a double tizzy because now she's um escaped the fate of being picked up. And I apologize after this because I needed to get the video. And of course, this was easy to train. You just ask her to hop on your lap and she doesn't need to be picked up. So we just avoided the whole setup. Here is another example of an animal that would often sort of flip over onto its back and then bite. So this was a coyote, and he would do that display, and you'd go to pet him, and then he'd grab your hand. So something that's a little bit different between the dog who flips over and really wants that belly rub is these dogs, you can see in their facial expression, that shut mouth, their eyes can be a little bit hard like that. And then again, they'll start to, when they roll over in a ritualized way with that paw up, kind of showing under the legs. And then review. So here we have the another look at sort of a similar ladder of regression. We started in the beginning with our navigation signals, yawning, blinking, nose lick. So at that stage, you'll see that frequently. Dogs are using that all the time. Now, if I'm about to leash a dog in the kennel, I'm noticing at that point, I don't need to maybe escalate any higher than that. I can be like, all right, well, this dog doesn't enjoy what's about to happen. If I go further, I could be bit. And not only that, some of these dogs are missing pieces. If they've been punished, they really quickly drop rungs of the ladder. They might not show between yawning, a head turn, lifting the paw, and a bite because they were punished for growling. They were punished for a lot of the other behaviors that showed they were uncomfortable. So it's something that if I don't know that dog, then noticing the kind of green and green turning to yellow, that's my pre-warning. That's the stuff I want to listen to make sure. Plus, if you're intending on making a good impression in the end, the sooner I listen to the dog's body language, the more confident they are. Even more than giving treats, being respectful of the dog's body language earns their trust faster than anything. And that's it. That's the end of this lecture. Now, there are two more. There is the um, canine body language, the language of play, and also predation, which we will record soon so that people will have access to that. So thank you and have a good day.